Welcome to Knowledge on the Go, the podcast brought to you by the PI Programs team at Vizient. I'm Shannon Hale, Performance Improvement Program Director here at Vizient, and your host for this podcast. Today we are speaking about sepsis, specifically working to reduce readmissions in sepsis patients. Recent studies have demonstrated that sepsis patients have a much higher readmission risk than other common conditions, such as heart failure, heart attacks, and pneumonia. The National Institutes of Health states that sepsis is a substantial healthcare burden, accounting for 6.2% of total hospital costs in the United States. Joining me today to share their work to decrease sepsis readmissions is Shannon Chase Weck, Performance Improvement Specialist and Sepsis Coordinator at Houston Methodist West in Texas. Shannon, welcome and thank you for joining us today.
Hi, thank you.
What made you decide to look at this topic as an organization?
We wanted to look at it because it's the number one admitting diagnosis. It's the number one readmitting diagnosis. It's a huge cost to not just our hospital, but to our patients as well. We're dealing with short resources, so we want to reduce those costs as much as we possibly can. And then there's a rumor that CMS might be looking at readmissions in the future.
You've identified you're going to look at sepsis readmissions. I'm interested to hear what was your approach as you began to work with this?
We wanted to see what we could do using the least amount of resources that we had available to us. And at that time, it was using our nursing staff to provide education. We looked back, only 9% of our patients actually received education on sepsis. They were informed that they had an infection, but they weren't educated on sepsis itself. And we wanted to really create something that was fun and get our team involved. We originally started with our Epic order sets and found that only increased our education to 40% from that 9%. That really key to us that we had to get the staff buy-in. So we created a race. Our teams, our units are very, very competitive. We want to be the number one hospital in our system, and each of the units want to be number one. I love muscle cars. My son loves Grand Prix racing. We came up with a Grand Prix racing idea, and it was really a fun way to get the teams involved, and they could visually see their results each week.
I love the Grand Prix theme and making that fun. So great idea there. What type of outcomes have you seen with this project?
Once we started the education project, our goal was to hit 75% or better of our patients getting that education. And then our goal for our readmissions was to be less than 10%. When we started the actual Grand Prix, it was 44% for our education, and our readmission rate at that time was 15.9%. And then once we completed the competition, we had 73% of our patients getting that education. So we were just a little short of our goal, and our readmissions did drop down to 12.6%.
Great. As you look at performance improvement projects, often sustaining changes is the hardest part. How have you sustained your improvements?
The competition itself helped with that, even just the sustaining it, because the other units saw those winners get their prizes. And they know that if we usually get a good response, we'll repeat it. So they wanted to be the best if we were going to repeat it again. They wanted to be prepared to win the race the next time. But we've had it to where we were sharing the data. And that's the biggest part that we saw to get the buy-in was sharing. They wanted to see the results, and they didn't want to just see it monthly. They wanted to see it each week so that they could feel that impact of each of them making a difference. I also share a list of those nurses' names that provided education for each of those units. So there's a graph showing how many times they provided sepsis education. So it's very visual for everybody to see that. And that's seen in their department, but we also share it during our leadership meeting as well. So I had a lot of great leadership buy-in. After our meetings, they would pick up the phone and call me and say, hey, how can I make my unit better? And why is my department not performing like the one down the hall? And so they would ask a lot of questions and see what they could do better. Just having that buy-in, having my personal director who really supported this project and having those resources available to help me providing those rewards, that really helped us. The frontline staff were amazing. I have a sepsis frontline team. They took on their duties and they would discuss the importance of education, why we were doing it, to get the staff to buy in. We wanted to decrease the readmissions. And so they would discuss this in their daily shift huddle. And just hearing that over and over during the daily shift huddle really made the staff focus on it.
With any project, there's always barriers. So I'm interested to hear, what barriers did you run into and how did you address those at your organization?
We did run into quite a big barrier, and that was COVID. The pandemic hit us right when we were starting our project. So we had to stop the project at first. And then when we went to start it back up again, we found that we had lost quite a bit of our staff, big turnover in our staff. So we had to get them just the basics going back again before we could even focus on this project. Once we've got everybody back on board, we really focused on those new team members and getting our education. I also lost part of my frontline sepsis team, so had to get them on board and really get them focused as well. So that was one of our biggest barriers. But we also had a new unit that had been built and was opening up at the same time. And so part of that was getting them just even settled and adjusted to their new unit before we could really get them on board with the project. But we made it a big priority on their unit to get involved in the project so that they started on an up note that was really making sure that even a new unit got included and not left behind. They did end up finishing last, but they were not far behind.
I'm curious, as you think about your work to decrease sepsis readmissions, are there any big ahas that come to mind that you would share with listeners of this podcast?
The biggest thing was getting your team's buy-in. So when we just put it in an order set in Epic and said, okay, we've got orders there, we expect the nurses to follow the orders. We put in those 3 orders. We went from 9% to 40%. So just putting an order set in wasn't going to get us enough buy-in. We really had to get our nursing staff behind it and get their buy-in. So we had to get creative with it and think of a good creative way to get competitive. And my director really supports that. I originally had just thought of cars and then putting the cars on a visual racetrack for them to see their progression every week was really what got the team involved. Providing the small rewards got us big gains. Providing our reward of a pizza party for the grand prize really got the team involved. But then having those runner-ups, they got cookie parties. And seeing that those rewards actually got paid out and having pictures posted in our communications online within the hospital got the teams involved as well.
This is great, creative, and fun work that you've done there. So I know from our current work here at Vizient that preventing readmissions in sepsis patients is a big interest area for many organizations out there. I appreciate your knowledge and your experience on this, and thank you for joining me today.
Great. Thank you. We really appreciate it.
Certainly. Our thanks to Shannon Chase Weck, Performance Improvement Specialist and Sepsis Coordinator at Houston Methodist West, for sharing her work. And thanks to you for listening. For Vizient's PI Programs team, I'm Shannon Hale. Please join us for more knowledge on the go. Subscribe today, like us, and send us your comments at picollaboratives@vizientinc.com.